Where I come from, this time of year, everything comes to life. Nature, which seems to be dead throughout the winter, is now coming back to life. The trees that for months had no leaves are all of a sudden blossoming in brilliant white and pink and gold. Lawns are covered with new green grass, and beautiful flowers bring new color to every yard. Even in the middle of the big city, you see the little rabbits and squirrels scampering around. Everything proclaims new life. For us as children, perhaps the most beautiful harbinger of new life was a lovely little brown bird with blood-red breast and sky-blue eggs. It is at Easter time that the robin returns as the unmistakable sign that new life has come to the earth. In my childhood, I heard the beautiful legend of the robin from the old people who had heard it from their grandparents. It seems that many years ago, in a land far away, there was a little brown bird. One day, as he was flying around, he saw on a hilltop the gruesome sight of a young man hanging on a cross. The bird was moved to pity for this suffering young man. Upon flying closer, he saw that through the man's hands and feet had been driven large nails, and on his head was a crown of thorns, which must have been excruciatingly painful. The little bird began to weep. He wanted so badly to pull out those nails, but he realized they were too big for him. "I am just a little bird," he tweeted, "and these nails are far too large for me. But how I would love to relieve this young man's suffering." Then something occurred to him. "I might be too little for the nails, but I can pull out some of the thorns from his head and relieve at least a little bit of his suffering." So the little bird flew down to the young man on the cross and began to pull at one of the thorns. It was very difficult, but he pulled and pulled until the thorn came out of the man's head. Then he attacked the next thorn and the next, and he knew that he was doing his part, however small, to alleviate this man's suffering. Finally, all that was left was the biggest of the thorns, embedded deep into the young man's head. The little bird looked at it and said, "I can't. I am too weak. I cannot get this last thorn out." But then he looked into the young man's eyes, and his heart was once again moved to pity. The little bird said, "I don't know who you are. I don't even know your name. All I know is that you are suffering, and with all my heart I want to do something to relieve your pain." So the little bird mustered up all his strength. He pulled and pulled and pulled and pulled at that largest of the thorns. At long last the thorn came out. But in pulling so hard, the little bird fell back onto one of the thorns. It pierced his heart, and he was dead. In a few hours, the young man was also dead. But after 3 days he rose again, because he was the Son of God. When this young man rose, he remembered the little brown bird who had been there to help him. He found the bird, picked him up gently, and raised him back to new life. The bird's breast was still covered with blood, the blood of his own heart, which had been moved to pity, mixed with the blood of the young man he had helped. And the robin we see today still shows that blood-red breast to remind us of the power of a heart moved to pity, to remind us of the power of the one who died and rose to new life that we too might live. Death and resurrection happen over and over again in our lives, in nature, and deep inside our souls. We die to ourselves when our hearts are moved to pity for a fellow human being in pain. It is then that our blood becomes one with the blood of the crucified and stains our breast with the indelible mark of love. Once, a young friend of mine wrote to me that he had been terribly hurt trying to pull a child out of a collapsing, burning building. He had been so handsome and had even worked as a model. Now he was ashamed to be seen with his broken nose and scars and burns and bruises. He didn't want to be seen in public. I wrote back to my friend and said, "Never be ashamed of the scars and bruises life has given you. Those scars are the sign that you have struggled, that you have suffered, that you have reached out to others in their pain. Never be ashamed of the bruises and scars of life. Never be ashamed of your red breast." Let us all be harbingers of new life, red-breasted robins to the world. Maybe we are too little to deal with life's big nails, but even the smallest, the weakest among us, has strength enough to help a little bit with the little thorns in life. When we recognize on our breast the stain of a heart that has bled for love, then we will recognize all around us the new life that is ours forever.